Our next contestant is Dax Kellie, and the title of his presentation is First Impression or Suppression.
We've all heard the saying, never judge a book by its cover. But it turns out that even though we know not to do this, we're still all very bad at taking this advice. Something as trivial as the clothes that someone wears is enough to change a lot about what we think of them. Even a short skirt or a low-cut top, clothes women wear every day is enough to make people perceive those women as less able to think and less able to feel. When you think about it, it's pretty weird, right? Psychologists are very interested in this, and they call it objectification. You may have already heard of objectification, or you might already know what it is. Maybe you've seen it in the media, or maybe you've felt objectified yourself. Even though we know that objectification exists, we're still not entirely sure why it happens. Although objectification can happen to men, it's often targeted towards women, often harsher just because of the clothing they wear, which seems pretty unfair. And when women are judged more harshly than men for the same sorts of behaviors or appearances, that's when sexual double standards arise. Like, remember when Miley Cyrus twerked with Robin Thicke at the VMAs? She was ridiculed, but he was seen as a victim, even though they both danced to the same song, voted in the top 10 most sexist songs of the decade, which he wrote. Research about society and cultural practices have provided some insight into double standards, but what I do is very different. I'm an evolutionary biologist that combines psychological and evolutionary theory to understand why women's sexuality is suppressed more than men's, and ultimately the origins of sexism. So I wanted to know, what is it about looking sexualized that makes people think that women think less? What specific judgments are people making when they objectify others? I asked over 1,600 people to judge 56 photographs of different women, ranging in age, size, and amount of clothing, to see which first impressions affected objectification. I found that men and women were hung up on two things: sex and attractiveness. Women thought to be into casual sex were objectified more. People perceived these women as thinking less. However, women who people thought were attractive were objectified less and assumed to think more. And again, it was both men and women who did this to some extent, not just men. There's a fine line for women between looking attractive and sexualized. And my research shows that in many ways, women can't win. There's the social pressure to appear attractive. And research tells us what we already know. We like to be around attractive people. We hire them more for jobs, we tip them more at cafes and restaurants, we even think that they have better social skills. However, what looks attractive for women is closely associated with what looks sexy. And my research shows that every day, women somehow must balance this to keep impressions from becoming suppression.